This is Chris with Justice League Swag, coming at you with the Nightrose deck profile that was recently played against the Gavrail deck in the battle video. This is my starter. Undying Departed. Comes in so clutch, coming with those free counter charges just by calling it from the drop zone and retiring during the end phase with the hollow ability. Those who don't know what hollow is, it's when they're called from to the rear guard. They're from hand, drop zone, declare that they're hollowed. At the end of the turn, they'll retire themselves. So I'm gonna start with the trigger lineup. I play the 1 Mike Degosi because sadly he is only at 1 because there are so many dirty combos you can do with this card on offense or defense. You just leave them on board and then kill them off on your defensive turn just to give your Vanguard that plus 10,000 for the turn, or an offense that just to add that 10,000 to add pressure. And then I play 11 critical. I play the 4 Rough Seas Banshees for that early game. Early game, you use her, go into Gauche, just to cycle them out of the soul, just to bring them right back, put them back in soul, just to draw the card. Because all her ability is put her into the soul, draw the card. She's basically Psychic Bird. And then I'm currently only playing one of the one that goes into soul when you swing with a Nightrose, just for the simple fact I do not have more than the one. And then for the rest of it is just vanilla crit triggers. Vanilla Grand Blue crit triggers. For the grade 1s, start with the 1-ofs. I play the 1 Swordmaster Mimic. You don't want to see it too often, it's not very useful. It's just for that extra 6k late game. Can make it to where just that extra 10k the guard with really comes in handy. It forces out that 10k, and then all you have to do is GB1 restricted, call it, give it and another hollowed unit plus 3,000 for the turn. I play 2 Baldy Ghosty. He gets GB1, he gets plus 2,000 to his power when he's called to the rear guard from the drop zone. Then his other ability is when he's put into the drop zone during the battle phase, you countercharge 1, and then you put him on the bottom of the deck. So it stops you from decking out. It helps a lot from you decking out. And a really good combo with this is you can call it, you could call it 1 turn, it has a booster. Then your defensive turn, you just use your G guard to retire this. You counterblast 1, retire a unit, call a ghosty normal unit from the drop zone, and then it gets plus 10k guard. You don't have to have another target in the drop zone. Just the fact that you would counterblast 1 and retire this, get that free 10k guard, just to countercharge and put him on the bottom of the deck. Then I run 3 Necrobone. What he does is when he boosts another unit at the end of the battle, I can counterblast 1, retire said unit, just to call another unit from the drop zone. What's really good about it is you can call Negro Lazy with it. With 1 call is counterblast 1, soul blast 1. Just to call another unit. So what you can do is you can boost with him, retire the unit, call Negro Lazy, just to build a whole new lane by calling something over top of Negrobone. And of course, the 4 Stride Fodder. He's a target. Not only is he a Stride Fodder, he's also a target for the G guard that targets a ghosty normal unit to call it back. And then the 4 Perfect Guard. I did not feel a need to play the Unflipper in this deck. You already have so much counter charging. So I'd rather have Recycling Perfect Guard. You Soul Blast 1, put a copy of herself into the drop. Soul Blast 1, pitch a card from your hand, put a copy from your drop zone on the bottom of your deck, and add that copy this copy to your hand after she's retired due to the hollow ability. Oh. And then, I forgot about show you the heal triggers. It's just Bernard the Ghosty. One to the grade 2s. One of the main reasons that I do not play the unflipping Perfect Guard is for her. Her ability when she swings, if she's hollowed or not hollowed, when she swings, she gets plus 2,000 per hollow ability, which is per unit that is hollowed, even if you aren't on GB yet. Her GB1 restricted ability is when she swings, the end of the turn she's due to the hollow ability, you can put her on the bottom deck and countercharge 1. And then the combo piece I was talking about earlier, the Necro Lazy, I only played it at 3 because you want to see him, but he's recyclable. For his ability, you Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, call a unit to your from your drop zone to your rear guard, and he gets plus 2,000. And his ability, when he's retired to the hollow ability, you Soul Charge 1, Countercharge 1. So he's basically free if you can keep him on board long enough to die to his own hollow ability. It's the only time I've ever not gotten his ability off is when I've tried to push for game by retiring him with Necro Bones to go get an extra lane, or I'm playing against a control deck like Murakami or Kagero and they just blow him up. One of the one-ofs I play is the Skeleton Cannoneer. Even if I can't use his ability right away, I'll just call him on board while I'm on my grade 3. Retire him by my own card ability on my opponent's turn with my G guard normally. So what the grade 3 does, when a unit drops from your field, you can mill the top 3 cards of your deck, bring it back. So not only are you getting the G guard's ability to get the extra plus 10,000 by retiring a unit, you're also going to bring him back to be able to blow up a unit on your opponent's field. So you can either blow up the unit that's attacking if you can't get it up high enough guard, or you can just blow up their other lane so they lose 1 swing. Another one of I play, which not many people play, that I've seen is King Serpent. I've had plenty of times where he has set me up to do multiple swings with Necro Lazy. At the beginning turn, I'll call Necro Lazy, Soul Blast to 1, Countercharge to 1, just to call him, just to gain back all the resources I just used for Necro Lazy, just to retire him off of Negro Bones during the battle phase, just to call a Necro Lazy for completely free, without losing all them resources by doing 2 Necro Lazies in 1 turn. Then I play 2 Pirate Swordsmen. His ability is when he is boosted, I Counterblast 1 and call a unit from the drop zone to the rear guard. It's at the end of the battle. His is when it attacks. So most people, you got to be careful with it because some people don't realize it's when it's attack, and I've seen a few people try to play my deck and they'll call over their own booster to try to get off other stuff, and they'll lose their boost, and it just doesn't work out. On to the grade 3s. I play 1 Nightstorm. He's just so good. He is such a combo piece. His ability with GB1, it's when he swings the Vanguard, Counterblast 1 if he's hollowed, and just call a new unit. So you can just swing with him, call a new unit on top of him, and just swing again. Then his other ability is Soul Blast 1, Counterblast 1. When he's placed on Vanguard, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You add one with the hollow ability to your hand. Then I play the 3 Vampire Princess of Starlight Nightrose. The only reason I play 3 is because I don't want to have to ride her. I'd rather not. I'd rather have her on rear guard, because that way I get off I can get off Nightfog's ability and Starlight's ability, because Starlight's ability also activates on Vanguard or rear guard. What her ability is, when another unit is placed on my field, I can Soul Blast 1, call another unit from my drop zone in the same column as her. So she fares very well with the G Guard that retires one. If I have Night Fog on board as my Vanguard, retire a unit, her ability would trigger, call that unit back, then her ability would trigger, call me another unit on my opponent's turn. It's very strong against the Kagura matchup with the restanding, where they have pitch cards to restand, because at that point you have at least 4 units left to have another way to blow something up, which they most likely will not, because this will be during their battle. And then last but not least, I do play the 4 Necrofog. Night Fog. She is your ideal ride target. Her ability is when you stride, you just counterblast 1, call a unit from your drop zone, it gets plus 2,000. It's such a solid on stride card because you have so many ways to get that counterblast back. And it's very simple because all your units get abilities when they're called from the rear guard, called to the rear guard from the drop zone, or they get abilities when they're retired from the rear guard. Onto the stride. By far my favorite stride in the deck, and such a game clutch, is Nitrosonger. His ability is, after he swings, you counterblast 1, pitch a card, and then Persona Flip. Then call a unit from your drop zone, and it gets plus 5,000 per unit face up in your G zone. So normally this will be my first stride. I will bank my board using the orange stride ability of Nightrose by calling my Necrosongers to make my board. And then during the battle phase, I'll swing with this. It just be that extra attack. I can call another Necrosonger from my drop zone, get the Necrosonger's ability, I'll make 2 full lanes, while that Necrosonger gains a ton of power. And you can do that on first stride, because normally he is my first stride and my last stride. The second stride normally will be, depending on the situation, Gauche is going to be my first stride or my second stride, depending on what I'm playing against and depending on my hand or field. Because if I don't have a field set up, I'll go into him just so I can just make a board if I don't have the resources to in hand. Because his ability is I counterblast 1, soul blast 1, Persona Flip himself, and then choose as many units from my soul as I want, send those to the drop zone, and then call that many units. So as I was saying with the critical trigger, early game, if you have 2 of her in hand, you just shove her in soul, draw the card, shove her in soul, draw the card, go Gauche on stride ability, pitch these out of soul, call them back, and put them back into soul, draw 2 new cards, and you can normally make a board with 2 cards that you just drew. Then I have, of course, the Miss Phantom Pirate King Nightrose. Honestly, I don't go into her very much. During locals yesterday, I went in locals 2 days ago. I went into her one time against, and that was against Overlord, which he had just dwindled my hand down so much. I had just enough stuff to call where they were big enough to hit. And then I swung out with those 2 lanes, swung with her. Her ability is I counterblast 2, Persona Flip herself, and then call 2 units from my drop zone, the rear guard, into different rows. Not different columns, it'd be different rows. So she literally calls a lane. She can't call 2 new attackers, sadly, which is why I barely use her. It'd be so much better if she called 2 new lanes. She calls 2 rows, not columns. And then I play the 1 Ghosty the Great King. Very few times have I gone into this. The only time I willingly went into this card was against the Vanquisher matchup, because he just bound my stuff so fast that I didn't have anything to go into. So I just left my graveyard very barren to begin with, and then on my first stride, I went into this, dumped those cards in there, was able to make a decent board and swing out on him. Sadly, I still ended up losing. Such a hard matchup against Narukami. By far your worst matchup, especially with the new Vanquisher support, because they can just bind your stuff so fast, it's ridiculous. And then I play the 1-up Pirate King of Redemption. I've only went into her once as well. She's not something I go into very often, because she's very cost heavy for what she does. But there's definitely situations where she has come in handy. One situation being was I was playing against Angel Feathers. So I went into her, called my Necrosonger, and I called my Cannoneer's ability. So I ended up popping 3 cards on their field for a 3 counter blast. And that was able to board wipe him. So I was able to get her other ability to draw the extra card, which ended up drawing me the perfect card that I needed to survive the next turn. She is definitely a very situational card. That's why she is only a 1-of, especially since she doesn't flip anything up, so she doesn't help your GB. And last but not least, for the strides, I play the 1 GB8. This is such a kill card. It is basically a slightly weaker version of the Xerath Dragon. It calls 5 cards like the Xerath Dragon, gives them all plus 10,000. The only difference is they don't get to switch positions once they attack, which isn't too big of a deal in Nightrose, because I have so many different rear guards that can either retire themselves, retire other units to call brand new lanes, to where I'd rather swing with really big lanes than tutor out smaller lanes and just keep going, get as many attacks off as I can. One game with this, using, when I got the GB8, it was against a Gargoyle deck. I ended up getting in 11. I ended up getting like 6 attacks in with just on my GB8 turn by going GB8, having her on board, the Necro Bones, and then this was that. So the way it worked was you can swing out with this lane, use his ability, retire this. You call out the Necrolazy calls over the Necro Bones, call another Necro Bones from the drops, call out the Necrolazy. You don't even have to use the Necrolazy's ability, you just use Nightrose's ability, Soul Blast of 1, just to call another unit. Normally it's going to hopefully be another Necrolazy. That way you can just swing out with this lane, use this Necrolazy's ability, and just keep going into different cards. If you have the resources, go into another Necrolazy, call a whole new lane, and you can just keep going with it as long as you have the resources, and it's almost infinite. That's how I got it, beginning in 6 attacks in 1 turn, on top of the initial. That's not even counting the Vanguard swing, which is Vanguard was swinging at. Since I had the Mimic behind him, it was swinging as very big. 1323, swinging for 48. Going into the G Guardians, this is the G Guard that I kept mentioning before. I could not remember her name. It's Negro Lily, but her ability is you counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards and retire it, and then you call a ghosty normal unit from your drop zone to your rear guard, and she gets plus 10,000 guard to the end of the battle. What I was saying with her and the way she interacts with the grade 3s is if you are on Negro Night Fog and you have a Starlight on board and a Cannoneer on board, what you can do is you can, let me find the Cannoneer. D-Guard with her Counterblast of 1, retire the Cannoneer, and then call it Ghosty in the drop zone if you have one, but it has to be a normal unit. Normally I would go for Bal if I can, just in case I can go to another G-Guard just to retire the Bal. But Then her ability can trigger, build the top 3 cards of your deck. Crawl this back. His ability, you can counterblast 1, retire one of their units. So now you've gotten a plus 10k to your guard, retired one of their units, and then you can also trigger this ability to Soul Blast 1 to call another unit right behind her. So in theory, you could have called off 3 units just from this one G guard using 2 counterblasts and 1 Soul Blast. And against the Kagura matchup is such a strong play when they try to go their restanding Vanguard, because normally they do not have the extra cards to pitch, because they would have to pitch their entire drive check plus 1 card out of their hand. Normally they will opt out to not do it. I've had 3 different Kago players just say, oh, just not going to restand because I don't have the cards to pitch. And it saved me so many times by them not being able to restand their Vanguard. The other 2 of I play is Necrodoom. She is such a good G-Guard. Soul Blast 1, she gets plus 5,000 if you have 5 or more cards, plus 5,000 if you have 10 or more, and then an additional plus 5,000 if you have 15 or more. With being Grant Blue, you're normally going to have it pretty quickly going to 15 cards in drop zone. So she is just Soul Blast 1, and she is a 30k G-Guard. She doesn't do much more than that, but she doesn't need to do much more than that. That is such a big wall of people to deal with. The only thing I know that can constantly get over that and deal with that have been Helios and going against Neo Nectar. And then last but not least, I played 1 of the Super G Guard. It's a very good card. Soul Blast 1, flip a G Guard, of course. And then you call any 2 units from your drop zone that are different grades to your Guardian Circle. So you just call back the heal trigger you just pitched and another unit to get an additional 15k. So she's also a 30k guard. But that is it for my Nightrose deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, comment any things, any suggestions, any questions, and I will try my best to answer them and address them.